Good evening, West Nile, and especially those viewers from Koboko. In the studios is Junior Faizul for an important program today. I'm also joined by a co-host that's actually beside me, so you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Junior. Good evening, viewers out there. It's me, Lesson, your co host for tonight's Educate program on Capitalone Media. Our tonight's topic on the Educate program is enhancing performances in schools.
So, as all of you know, that education is actually what builds up the society today. Now, today we basically have actually a very interesting topic, as said, better performance in West Nile, especially schools of Koboko. Now, I want to give a brief background about the performance in Koboko for the past years. By the way, if you follow Koboko in the 19s up to the 2000s, actually Koboko has been performing a bit good, although it's not all to our expectations, but it's actually what they have been trying. Now, in the performance of Koboko, it's actually improved it started from 2007 when the government actually introduced, like, name it in 1997, no, 1997 when the government introduced the universal primary education. And then in 2007, when the government also tried introducing the universal primary education, where most of the students and pupils in Koboko were able to access education, since we're actually from a poor region where people don't actually get what they want. But since government introduced the what, the universal and the universal primary education and actually secondary primary education, things have been going on very well. So last year and this year, I think things have been going on well, though it has been the new curriculum, but we in Koboko we have actually managed to also perform better.
Yes, concerning that, I would really take it back to the primary schools. When you take it to the primary schools, performance starts from there. It's not only from the secondary level. When you talk about the performance, let's take it to the primary level and then we can come to the secondary level.
That's right.
Yes, when you try to check out the performances in primary level, you actually get to know that in these government schools, the performance is not all that good to those in private schools when you check it out. So, with all that performance that I'm seeing from from the private and the government schools, I think there's some gap in the middle that creates that difference in the performance. Like you see, from the private schools, you can see students are getting high grades, and when you come to the performance in government schools, you get it so poor. I don't know what could really be the reason behind that.
So if you take the private schools in terms of their actually infrastructure, their teachers, and maybe actually you can take their materials, their equipments,
Exactly.
they are much better compared to government schools. Like for instance, if you take the private schools, you see a class having like more than three teachers, one class having one or more than three teachers in a subject. Like for instance, I want to give an example. The school called Eden Junior in Koboko. It's actually one of the best performing schools in the recent years, and even up to now, it's actually doing very well in terms of academics. So if you take that school there, that school has a lot of teachers that have the zeal of teaching. But if you compare government schools, if you take government schools, they're not all that. I want to give you an example with one of my schools that has been around. In the recent PLE that passed, in the recent PLE, they managed to get to one first grade, and that's actually Nyarlo Primary School, I mean. So if you compare Nyarlo and Eden Junior, I think there's actually a great difference there in terms of the teachers and the infrastructures. Yeah. So that's actually what I can say about that.
Yes, to add on to that, I think concerning that issue of the infrastructure, you can see the infrastructure from Eden Junior. That storage building, I think it's really giving the students that zeal of learning. When you study from such a school, you would really have that zeal. You put that heart. But one thing I'd also want to put forward is that we, the teachers from the government schools, we shouldn't always focus that those other schools, they are outperforming us. We can really take this opportunity to also be in that same grade as them. We can put ourselves together, we focus on our learners, we teach them well, we advise them, we do all the necessary things to take them to that level. Let's not let it go to the private schools only.
That's true. So away from that lesson, how can you actually improve the performance in Koboko?
Thank you so much concerning that on the improvement of the performance. I will take it to be this way. First, I will give this to the students. I really urge the students to have this discipline for the teachers. When you're not disciplined with your teachers, there's no way you can learn from your teachers because they really give you that knowledge. There's this thing of undermining. You see that teacher, hey, the teacher is even my size, so why should I waste my time and give that teacher that privilege? So it's really one thing that's affecting the pupils out there. Though there are pupils out there, but they are big. They seem to be like they're bigger than the teachers. We need to be disciplined and respect our teachers so that we can perform.
So to add on that, by the way, if you take discipline, discipline is actually paramount in the education sector. Whereas people say, without discipline, you can't make it in education. So imagine the students outside there, whoever is viewing us, to actually be disciplined. Otherwise, without discipline, you can't actually prosper in academic standards. There are very many students out who are very bright, but because of discipline, you always get them performing poorly. So to add on that, I actually look at the government and the parents, including the teachers. They should actually motivate the students to actually improve on improve on the performance. Like if you motivate students by giving them awards, by appreciating them. Like for instance, those days I used to see like the best performing students were actually given some awards like mattresses. It was actually done by late Margaret Babadiri, the ex-MP of Koboko, who is a late now. She used to actually motivate students, and that one actually caused a lot of competition. That actually caused very many people to be hardworking in a way that you see it's really struggling to get first grade such that he can get actually that mattress there. So I think I think the leaders and the teachers outside there should actually adhere to this. Otherwise, if you don't do that, I think there will be no much competition. And when there's competition, I think we can perform better. So that's actually what I can add on that. What can you say?
Okay, to add on to that, I'd really advise students out there to also like focus on creating group discussions. Concerning performances, if you really want to like perform well, you need to involve in a group whereby you make discussions so that you can improve on your studies and other things as well. But if you don't engage in any discussion group, trust me, when you're someone who is like dull, you can never increase to that level of being in the same level with others. But when you join these discussion groups, it can also help. There are others there, they also help you share that knowledge. It really helps a lot. So I urge you to participate in group discussions.
Like for the issue of poor performance in Koboko and West Nile, I actually see there's a great problem, especially in the primary level. By the most of the stakeholders, especially this government, the parents and teachers have actually taken this one, the primary level, for granted, and they don't know that the primary level is actually where we start from. It's actually the foundation. If you're constructing a house, the foundation has to be very strong. So the primary level is actually the foundation. But in most times, if you see the primary level, it's actually not favored in a way that you see things are not done on time like the secondary level. So imagine the government, the teachers, and actually the parents to actually encourage the primary level. Otherwise, it's where we start reading, we start learning on how to read. That's where you start to learn how to write. Like that's where you basically learn A, B, C, D.
Exactly.
That's where you learn actually. So imagine the government to actually improve on that. Otherwise, if that's not improved on, we shall actually have poor performance, especially in the secondary and actually post-secondary. That's what I can say about that. So what can you add on?
Okay, to add on to that, I'd really like to talk about like this performance when it comes to their performance. From these schools, when you go, you check that girls, they are the most who don't even like perform well. And secondly, the number of girls in school nowadays, it's not like that great like we used to have back then. When you check the number of girls nowadays, it's not high, trust me. You go to a school, you find boys are high, they are more than girls in the class. What could be the reason? Parents at home there, please send these girls to school. Let's also educate them. So that's one thing that's really challenging the world. Girls, when you educate a girl, as it's been said, you educate the whole nation. So please, mothers, fathers, everyone out there, let's send our girls to school.
Okay, to add on that issue of the girls, by the way, I've actually seen a great challenge where the government has a great slogan for the girls. The government is trying to promote girl child education. And by the I'm seeing actually that to be something a bit negative in a way that if the government actually promotes girl child education and leave the boys, it means these same boys he has left will actually impregnate these girls, and they will be the same people to spoil those girls there. So imagine the government to actually be equally in terms of the education system. The government should both promote the boy child and the girl child. Otherwise, if the government just leaves the boys like that, the boys will be the same people who will spoil the girls. Because nowadays I see a lot of boys who actually engage in a lot of activities. Like you see boys don't go to school, they basically engage in drug abuse, eating marunji. That's very common in Koboko. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons why people are not performing. You see a student come in class, leaving class at around 2, going to the town, buying marungi, after buying marungi, he or she goes somewhere and eats marungi, and that actually affects the performance. So I'm urging the government outside there to look at to look at promoting girl child education and actually the boy child education as well. So that's what I can say on that. So to add on also, the government should look at improving infrastructures in most of the schools. But the reason why I don't see most of the schools performing very well is that there's actually poor infrastructures. Like here in Koboko, we have a lot of schools. I can give an example with a school called ISS and Longira ISS. These are government schools located in Koboko. And these are schools that have actually tried their level best to perform very well, but due to inadequate infrastructures, especially the classrooms. Let me just talk about the laboratory now for this case. So if you take in these schools, we don't actually, in these two schools I mentioned before, we don't actually have proper laboratories. And these are students who are doing physics, chemistry, biology, and other subjects. So I'm seeing if the government does not actually improve the infrastructures in the schools, there will be actually a big problem in terms of the performance. So I'm urging the government outside there to look at these schools and at least construct some laboratories, computer rooms like ICT labs. In some of the schools in Koboko, I don't actually see any single computer lab, any single computer. There's no computer lab. These are schools that, like during UNEB, they come to their neighboring schools and borrow computers from the neighboring schools. So that's what actually I want to add on that point of actually how the government can improve. I'm actually saying how you can improve on actually the education system.
Okay.
That's what I can say of that.
Okay, thank you so much concerning that. I really took that point like personally. You know, there's a school, like you said, those schools, they are really suffering. So the government, not only the government, the stakeholders, even the school board, they can like come together and help the school out. You know, it's for the benefit of the community, not only the government.
That's
so in
true.
that case, we can put our hands together and then help the school out. Let it not just be pushed to the government only. Yeah,
And actually, there's also a big challenge that I'm seeing. Now, if you take this challenge, it's actually in terms of the labor in the schools, the manpower. Like, I want to give you an example, the teachers, number of teachers in that school. You only see a few teachers in that school. And if the teachers are very few, you go to a school where there are over like 5,000 students or 5,000 pupils. Like if you go to the primary schools, I want to give you an example with a school called actually Media Primary. It's a school that has a lot of students, a lot of pupils, I mean. So if you take the number there, it's very great. And the teachers are very few. And if you take these teachers, the teachers stay very, very far. You see a teacher coming from Nyangelia to come and actually teach in that school Media. And you see a teacher coming all the way from Oraba to come and teach in that school called Media Primary School. So I'm actually urging the government maybe to